Good afternoon. Raise your hand if you are full of pasta. We are about to get started with our afternoon session here. Are we good? All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I would like to reintroduce Heather Haas. Some of you were able to hear her this morning at the keynote. I missed it because I was out in the hallway doing registration, but I heard it was really good. Heather's passion for fueling others' success drove her from her beginnings as a teacher and principal to her role as owner and CEO of Advisa. Heather leads a team of bright, caring people who help clients transform their work cultures into sustainably loved workplaces through leader development. Heather loves the mountains, singer-songwriter music, curling up with a book, and being active outdoors. Her family and her faith are her greatest sources of strength and joy. So Heather is going to talk to us now about leading through connection, combating burnout in the workplace.
Okay, it's always wonderful when I get the after lunch pasta slot. Thank you for coming, because many of you may have already heard me once today, so it means a lot to me that you wanted to hear more from me. This session, I'm going to be tackling the topic of burnout from the angle of connection. This morning I talked about 3 perspective hacks, things that you can individually do to kind of flip your mindset. This session is going to be, like I said, coming at it from a different point of view. And leading through connection is actually kind of one of the core beliefs of our approach to leadership development. We believe that relationships drive results. So whether you're in a nonprofit setting, you're volunteering, you're running a shelter, you are a vet tech, or you're the CEO of a large bank or hospital, everything is easier when you can build trust and shared purpose and connection with other people. It makes getting the work done easier. And in the context of burnout, it's actually even more important, because we're kind of neurobiologically wired as humans for connection. So leveraging our understanding of how to do that is really powerful. But first, I'm going to put you to work a little bit so that you don't fall asleep after all that good pasta. You're going to have to find a partner. For some of you, you may be like, oh goody, this is going to be so fun. Others of you are going to try to quietly grab your things and leave the room. Like, oh no, I chose the wrong breakout. But I promise you, I do this activity for a reason. What's going to happen is, with a partner, and it's going to get loud, I'll just warn you, so you just have to kind of focus in. I'm going to give you 90 seconds, and one of you is going to start out, and you're going to be the talker, and the other person is going to listen. And so if you're in the talking role first, you're just going to, stream of consciousness respond to these 3 prompts. This is who I am. This is what I like. This is what I want out of life. Now, for some of you, you may not have even thought about the answers, but it doesn't matter. You're just going to try to speak for only 90 seconds. If you're the listener, your task is to just listen, not talk, not interject, not ask a question. I'm going to call time, and then you're going to flip roles and do the same thing, and then I'm going to call time, and then we're going to debrief, okay? Any questions before? If you're a single, you may need to move to a table, so I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to find a partner. It's not the end of the world if you can't find a partner, or if you truly want to take a pass on this. I'm not going to go around and manage this closely. but I invite you to participate because it's pretty cool when we do. So partner up, and I'm going to find my little timer thing on my phone. Okay, it looks as though people have successfully partnered. So I'm getting ready to start the timer. So before I do, raise your hand if you're speaking first. Just make sure everybody knows their roles. If you're speaking first, okay, good. And then remember, listeners, no talking. You're just going to, I did forget a really important direction. Geez, I've been out of the classroom too long. When I call time, listeners, you do have a task, and that is you have to tell back what you heard. Okay? I left out a really important detail. Then when we switch, the new person speaks, listeners listen, then they'll get to retell. So there is a retelling. So as you're listening, you want to really be focused. You don't have to try to memorize what they're saying, but you do want to be focused on them and really take it in. Okay? So 90 seconds begins now. Okay, time. That was 90 seconds. For some of you, it was like way too short. And some of you were like, oh my God, that took forever. Okay, so now listeners, tell back what you heard. So let's take about 30 seconds for the retelling. Okay, hopefully. Okay, good. Well done. I mean, I was hesitant to cut you off. We have some good listeners in the room. Now we're going to switch roles. So if you were a talker, it's your turn to listen starting now. Okay, time. Tell back what you heard if you were in the listening role. Yes, you should be retelling. Yeah, sorry, time was up. You're still telling back what you heard. Okay, time. So, let's do a little debrief of what did we just do here. So first of all, when you were speaking, how was that? What was hard about it? What did you like about it? I just love, if you could just call out loudly a few reactions, that would be helpful. Awkward. Okay. Uh-oh. What else? A little overwhelmed. What was overwhelming about it? Like, or what felt awkward? What was the overwhelming or awkward part? Okay. A lot of info. Yes. Kind of speaking out because it was sort of one directional, right? The other person wasn't really, interjecting and, they were truly just quiet and listening. What about when you were the listener? How was that? Was there anything hard about that? Hard to focus, hard to keep quiet, hard to not ask questions. Here's the real question. When you had your partner retell what they heard from you, how did that feel? Validating? Good? Heard? You had accurate? You felt understood? Connection? typically people do, truly, the 90 seconds that you just experienced with another human being only focused on you and only listening to you, that doesn't happen very often in this world today. I mean, some of you may not have been truly listened to for 90 full seconds ever in your lives. Right? So when you hear that other person replay the tape, you kind of are like, oh, yes, you got it. You were picking up what I was putting down. And sometimes when other people are replaying the tape, they even interject a little bit of interpretation, right? Maybe you didn't exactly say it, but they filtered what you said through their frame of reference, and they could play it back to you with a little bit of a twist or an interpretation, and then you're like, yeah, I guess you're right. I didn't say I was frustrated, but you picked up on that. You picked up on what I didn't say. So there's that, even that nonverbal exchange of information that creates connection, that creates it. The bottom line is it feels good. Someone even said it. It feels good to be listened to and to have 90 seconds where you're the center of attention. So that was a gift I just gave you. Listening is a gift. And listening is kind of the foundation of connection. We can't connect well with other people if we are always distracted or busy or self-absorbed. And part of, I think, what helps in this little exercise that we did, when you knew that you were going to have to retell it, now you were extra focused. And that little snippet, that exercise that I just had you do, it's actually part of a sales training that we do. And as part of the debrief that I do in sales training, I ask the salespeople, I ask them, what's the difference between the listening that you do when you're with your friends at dinner or out to lunch and you're catching up versus business listening, where you're listening to a prospect because you want to tell. And it's kind of the same thing here. When I gave you a purpose for the listing and I kind of assigned a task to you, there's more focus. And there is more of that thinking and interpreting while the exchange is happening. And that's where it really kind of deepens the connection rather than just, hey, how are you? Good. What's new? Nothing. That's kind of surface level. But a deeper connection comes when I really want to understand what you're saying. So remember, listening is a gift as it relates to connection. And that's a good setup for the 3 takeaways that I'm hopeful you're going to have over the next 45 minutes. The first is that the cure for burnout is not self-care. You don't need to go have a pedicure or drink more water or wine or whatever. It's actually about caring for each other. The second takeaway is that connection at work or in an organization, in a volunteer network, fill in the blank, is what makes hard work survivable. That's what kind of gets us through. It's hard to do things alone, truly alone. And then finally, there's actually 4 levels of connection that are very important to pay attention to if you're working in a high stress, high burnout, under-resourced environment. That intentionally paying attention to the 4 levels we're going to talk about is a big deal. So here's a stat from Indiana University School of Philanthropy. 95% of nonprofit leaders say they are concerned about staff burnout. You could insert volunteer burnout if you wanted. And nearly 75% report that burnout is impacting their organization's ability to achieve its mission. Does that surprise you, or are you sort of like, Yeah. It's probably not surprising given what the work that you all are doing and the fact that you're here on a Saturday to even learn and grow and give more. And then World Health Organization defines burnout as 3 things: exhaustion, cynicism, or emotional distance. For me, I recognize when that starts showing up because I'm like super irritable and negative, and I'm like, oh, I need a little break. And also a reduced sense of effectiveness. Have you ever felt any of those things? All of those things? Yeah. And that's it. I mean, when we recognize we're there, we don't want to stay there. We can recognize it. We can say, yeah, I'm in a tough spot. But then we need to try to lean on some of these sources of connection to get out of that stress cycle. So speaking of the stress cycle, has anyone ever read the book? I think the title is actually Burnout by the Nagoski sisters. They're twins. Oh, you have? Okay. It's been out for a while. But they studied burnout. And they talk about stress, which is what your body experiences, and stressors, stressors, the things external that cause you to feel stress in your body. And what I found most interesting about their work is they talk about the feelings of stress in your body, like fear, anger, frustration, despair, worry, whatever the emotions are. They talk about your feelings like have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And what happens is that many of us never allow ourselves, our feelings, an opportunity to like fully move through that tunnel, beginning, middle, end. We start to feel something, and then we move on to the next thing. Or we grab a Diet Coke to try to make it go away. Or we grab something else to try to make it go away. We don't let ourselves really feel what's going on inside of us. And so what happens is, think of it, it's like a tunnel. And these feelings should, in a healthy way, be able to move through the tunnel. I feel exasperated. And we let ourselves feel that, and maybe we use one of the reframes from the morning. And yet, we do a reframe, and that feeling can move through the tunnel, but most of us don't do that. So what happens is these feelings start getting clogged up in the tunnel, and they accumulate. And that's what starts to create that sense of burnout, where you're like, how did I get here? This is like I'm in the bottom of a well, like looking up, like, I don't know how to get out. So they talk about these evidence-based ways to complete the stress cycle, to get those emotions to cycle through so they don't build up in unhealthy and unproductive ways. These aren't new for you. I thought, though, putting them all 7 on here, even though the one I'm going to focus most on is this social interaction or connection. But look at number 1. Physical activity actually burns off, back to that fire metaphor from the morning, it burns off cortisol and adrenaline. That hit me. Like, I know I need to be better at going for a walk, going for a run, moving my body throughout the day as I can feel the stress kind of piling up and accumulating inside. I could take a 5-minute walk, and then that would allow my body to go, oh, okay, sunshine, wind in my face. That's helpful. Breathing. Not new, but how often do we really stop and do it? Not enough. So it's a good reminder, because breathing signals safety to your nervous system. Number 3, we're going to unpack more, but connection is, I'm safe, I'm not alone. Laughter, gotta love that. And it's a reset of your nervous system quickly. Number 5 should not surprise you, right? Petting an animal is like this. These are evidence-based things. This isn't just what these sisters dreamt up. They studied it, which is why I have a dear friend. She has these. Does anyone follow the 4 Retrievers Instagram account? If you do, that's my friend. She has these beautiful 4 golden retrievers, and they're all trained up. And she takes them to hospitals and schools so that kids and people who are in difficult circumstances can just pet these beautiful animals. And she just said it brings her so much joy because petting a dog counteracts stress chemistry. It's proven. Crying, sometimes we just need to cry. We just do. And creative expression. That's another thing. If you find yourself feeling really tightly wound and some of those things like exhaustion and irritability are starting to come out, go plant some flowers or draw or paint your nails. Like something that gets, or cook. Cooking can be a creative endeavor. Those are things that'll help your body complete the stress cycle. So, zooming in on this connection piece a little bit more. This is also proven. Nervous systems regulate together. So, if you work with a group of people, live with a group of people, and by the way, if any of you are leaders, I often teach this to leaders. It's so important. If you're the leader of a team, the leader of any kind of work group, your emotional state is contagious. Doesn't mean you have to pretend that you're something that you're not. It is just important to know that you're kind of a bellwether that others are looking to, like, are we safe? Are we good? Are we not good? Like, which way is the wind blowing? So when people feel, even if you have to use some of the framing from the morning, like, we're in a really hard, scary chapter as an organization. We're not sure where our funding is going to come from. And that might make some of us afraid about our jobs and the animals that we care for. And yet, we still have some important work we can do right now. So that's where we're in this together. And when people feel that support, there's honesty, but also connection. The cortisol drops, decision fatigue eases, and recovery becomes possible. So connection doesn't make, hard work any less hard. It just makes it survivable. So let's talk about those 4 levels. There's job connection, manager connection, or team leader, or whatever word. If you're a volunteer, it might just be the person who coordinates your shift. Team connection and mission connection, or purpose. And I'm just going to unpack these a little bit, and then you're going to have a chance to self-assess, kind of see where you are. So first of all, job connection, that sounds funny. Like, what does that even mean? Generally, what that means is people get to use their strengths in doing the work. So that usually feels good. Like, I'm good at teaching people things. And in my job, I get to put that hat on frequently. That connects me to that feels good when I get to do, or when I get to use my gifts. Right? That's part of what that means. So disconnection, then, the opposite, is when people are like, I don't know what I'm supposed to focus on. And the priorities keep shifting. My tasks keep changing. And I feel like there's no psychological end to the serving or the doing. So we want to try not to have that for people. We want to try to give people a sense of, here's the beginning and the end of what you do. Here's why it's important. Here's how your strengths line up with it. So just some practical, visible priorities. I know you each work and live and operate in different settings. But for some of you, maybe you can post what's important so people can see it and they're never unclear. This shift closeout, I realize you may not have a shift, but more broadly, we all need to know that at the end of whatever work we're doing or serving that we're doing, it should feel like it there's a beginning and an end. It can't just like linger forever such that we're like eternally on call or on the hook. If you feel that, that's a signal to you that your job, you need to create a little boundary between your job and other parts of your life. Because if that boundary isn't there, then we're not connected to the work in a healthy way. We're sort of a slave to the work in an unhealthy way. Okay? So burnout thrives in ambiguity. Burnout also thrives when there's no beginning and end. Like, I'm unclear. Does this ever end, or am I eternally supposed to pick up this phone when somebody has a pet that is in distress or that needs care? Okay? Manager connection. If you're a manager, this is especially relevant for you. If you're not a manager, you might be a parent, or some other role like that. But if you're in charge of other people's performance or other people's safety and well-being, it's not about being liked, it's about being reliable. Other people want to know they can count on you, and they want to know that you care. So if you want to strengthen that connection between you and someone else who relies on you, a little check-in every now and then can be really important. Even a check-in like what I just had you do at the top of this presentation. 3 little things you're going to share with me in 90 seconds. But these 3 questions are super helpful in a nonprofit environment, I've found. What's taking most of your energy? Where are you stuck? And then what's one thing I could remove or clarify for you this week? Just a helpful check-in rhythm. How many of you have an experience working with someone where some version of this kind of check-in occurs? Okay, couple people. I highly recommend. I highly recommend it. Because you've probably also experienced where, you have this wonderful person on your staff or a volunteer on the team, and then all of a sudden they just kind of ghost you. And you're like, I wish if I'd only known, or I wish I would have known sooner. I could have tried to solve or help or support. These check-ins, they solder that connection between you and the other person so that you can problem solve if ever they need a lifeline or they need help. Okay? Team connection. So the group of people that you work with, they're either going to buffer stress, like help diffuse it, or amplify it. And each of us have probably worked with groups of people that are one or the other. I mean, I can think for sure of a team that I've worked with in the past that when hard things would come down the pike, boy, they just sort of ratcheted the stress right up. Versus a team that when hard things come down the pike, it's more of a like, we got this. Okay. Let's take it one step at a time. And what we want to do with groups of people that we work with, it's important that we normalize asking for help. Make that part of a meeting rhythm. I'm sure you have certain meetings that you are a part of. What if you injected some of these questions? It's pretty powerful. At first, people will be like, why are we doing this? This feels weird and uncomfortable. And there are some of us who find it very hard to be vulnerable in any setting, especially in a work or non-private setting, non-home setting. But when we ask these questions, what was hard? Who took a well-needed break? Good for you. Like, what we tolerate and what we celebrate becomes the culture. So this is saying, as a work group, why not be intentional about celebrating the things that we know are healthy and reduce burnout, like celebrating people asking for asking for help, and celebrating people who take time off instead of working 7 days a week. Okay? And then here's this mission piece. Remember this morning, I said that, the fire within you, the passion that you bring to caring for animals, that very passion is also a fire that can get out of control and become destructive if you don't set the boundaries. So that's what I mean here about mission is a double-edged sword. It draws us to things in a very strong way, which is terrific. But it can also kind of silently shame us. What does that mean? I'm going to pause on that for a second. Are any of you sitting there and when you read that, you were like, oh, I know what that means? How can a mission or a purpose or a cause kind of be a double-edged sword?
I've had times where before when I'm asking for help to rescue something, they're like, why are you spending all your time with animals? There's people that need help. You should be spending money on animals when there's people that are hungry.
Okay, so there you have people sort of on the outside judging your commitment to a certain cause. Yes?
I feel that when I get phone calls from people that are in stressful situations and they want me to take their animal now, they're temporary, and I can't do that, I don't have the open space, and it just makes me feel
So you may have heard, but she was sharing, she feels it in those moments when people are in distress and they call her to take the animals, and she realizes that she can't, but she has that moment where she's like, oh, I should be able to. Is that kind of, I should be able to be the hero in this moment and that's that silent shame. You want so badly to be the helper, to be the one that does come through, that when you can't, it can turn back on you and make you feel badly about yourself. That's what's tricky about that internal passion, that pilot light that you have inside. Yes, in the back. I'm going to come with the mic. I don't think anything's going to beep or go weird if I walk around with this. Okay, here we go.
Each of us in this room here comes from an organization, and no matter how small nor how big, we all have a finite amount of resources that we have. We do everything we can every day, and somehow it's never enough. We are constantly being berated, sometimes by each other, sometimes by the community, by what we can and can't do or what we have done, and judged by that. So it can be a lot of shaming for us, each of us who gets up every day wanting to do the best we can for our community, for our shelters, for the animals, and for the people in our care, yet we are shamed by it regularly.
Very well said. I'm glad I made the trip. Thank you. Yes, that's exactly what this is intended to point out. And so a reframe for when you feel that or you sense that people in your shelter or people that you work closely with, when you can sense they're starting to feel that heaviness, help them reframe. Ask them a question. What's even one thing that we can point to, that even when all these other things we didn't have time and resources to get done, let's focus on the bright spot. That's critical. So we want missional connection, but we have to make sure we have boundaries. So here's where you have a moment. Now that I've explained that connection is a very powerful antidote to burnout, and you can be intentional on 4 different levels if you want to build stronger connection. So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes or so to reflect on a scale of 1 to 5 at each of these levels. 5 would be, I feel super connected. 1 is, oh boy, I'm adrift. And so let me walk through. I'll just use myself in my job at Advisa. Job connection for me is a 5. I am really blessed that what I love to do and what comes naturally for me is largely what I get to do in my job. And because I'm in the CEO, I'm the one setting the priorities. So that's the blessing of that. I know what I need to be doing and why. So I'd say I'm a 5. Manager connection. Well, I'm the manager in this case. So that one, and there will be for you too. Some of these won't be as relevant. Team connection. This one's interesting for me because I recently moved into the CEO role, so focusing more on vision and getting out and speaking and doing things like this. And I promoted someone to be the president. So he's kind of running things day to day. He's closer to the action and the team. So I used to have more direct reports. Now I only have the one. So the good news is this is going as I want it to go, but my team connection, I'd say, is probably more like a 3. I'm not in the action as much. So I do feel sometimes like things are happening. I'm like, oh, I didn't know about that. Well, that's what happens when you take yourself out of the mix, or the size of our organization is growing. So we have new people starting that I wasn't even part of the interview process. It used to be, boy, I did it all. I knew everybody. And now I'm like, And then mission connection, I hope it comes through. I'm super passionate about the role leaders play in creating healthy work environments. So I'd say I'm a 5, connected on mission. So those are my numbers. I'd love to give you some time, reflect on your numbers, and then just talk at your table about where do you feel connected, where's there's some daylight. We're going to take about 5 minutes. Okay. Let's come back together. I could have had you self-rate and keep it to yourself, but I had you share briefly at your tables. Why? Why did I? Because I could have filled this talk with even more content and not build in the sharing. Why share at your tables at an event like this? Connection. Because when you share it, it feels better. It helps. It helps to talk to people about how you are doing in these areas. When you get it out into the open, it's less scary. Others can validate how you're feeling. Others can help. Others can problem solve. There can be some energy as you. So thank you for sharing that. Your connection at these 4 levels does matter. So we've covered a lot of ground in a short amount of time. I started out and I gave you that gift, remember? You were truly listened to for 90 seconds. And I told you that's important because listening is the foundation of connection. And then I talked about 3 big ideas: that the cure for burnout is not self-care, it's caring for one another. We can't care for one another if we don't talk to each other and we don't really listen at a deeper level. Not how was the weekend, but are you getting enough sleep? You know, not did you have fun on spring break, but did you have time to unwind? And I know how much you love to read. Were you able to read a book on the beach? Do you see the difference? That's what we're talking about, caring for one another. As well as things like someone needs help and you take a meal over, that's caring for one another. Number 2, connection makes hard work survivable. So back to both things can be true. We can choose to keep showing up in a really hard, under-resourced environment like what you all do every day, and we can support each other as we do it. It can be both. And then, of course, connection happens on 4 levels, and when we're paying attention to all 4 levels, that's really when we are putting on some armor that protects us from burnout. That's where we have the best odds. And so that's kind of the end of the road here. I know we're going to take some questions, and I can run around with the microphone, or you can, either one.
Do you think doing like some team building or some like icebreakers at like with your team, like just to help people with burnout, do you think that would help?
It does. In fact, when in our leadership development programs that we do for leaders, we talk about this concept called connection before content. And so anytime people are gathered, you do have the opportunity to ask some of those questions or do a fun icebreaker. But even in like one-on-one meetings that we do between manager and we always start with connection. Sometimes a good connection prompt, like before a meeting, I'll say something like, everyone go around and share something you've learned recently. Or, hey, spring break just happened. Talk about a favorite memory from a staycation or a real vacation that you did. Anything. Because what you're trying to do by building that discipline is you're trying to make the work environment more human. Right? It's critical. Other questions? What else?
So one of the slides at the very beginning was, I remember 2 specific things that help with cortisol levels and that kind of thing. And one was laughing, and the other one was petting a dog. But for many of us, petting a dog is an all-day thing. Not literally, but so I was just wondering, is there like the law of diminishing returns, like you can only pet a dog so much and then it doesn't have that effect anymore. I'm thinking of like for laughter, I would also say the same thing. I mean, we laugh a lot, but I'm not sure that it really diminishes my cortisol anymore. I don't know. That's what I'm wondering.
I do think as you look at those 7 things, some are going to have more of an effect than others. For me, if I have a really stressful, or if I get, like, I can remember times when my parents passed away. Like, I remember telling my husband, "Leave me alone. I just want to lay in the bed with Miley and Mitt. I just want to pet the dogs. Like, that's what I want to do." But for you, the best thing on that list of 7 might be physical activity or creativity. So I do think you have to kind of think about what you already have in your life and what you don't have as much of, and add some more of that into the mix. They were right there, and then the gentleman here.
I just wanted to kind of add what you were saying. I watched a webinar from those scissors, and they also talked about how those 7 things are different with each person, and some people like really respond to like 1 out of the 7 or a few out of the 7. Some people all 7 work, so you can kind of figure out which one has the greatest effect on you. It's not you don't have to like conform to all 7 of them.
Do you have any tips for volunteers on how to get them re-engaged with the mission if they're starting to feel burnout?
At the risk of being on repeat, I actually would pause and use this as a framework. So like what tasks are you asking each of these volunteers? Actually, I would invert it. If I was re-engaging volunteers, I'd start with mission, because mission is the highest common denominator. Like that's what we can all agree on, right? That we care about animals, or whatever fine point you want to put on that. To that end, reconnecting on mission. I know when we work with like healthcare clients, a lot of times they'll bring in a patient to the staff meeting, and they call it like a mission moment, and a child who's gone through cancer therapy. You know what I mean? Like it brings you back to, wow, this is why we do what we do. So there could be something along those lines, a mission moment. But then I would sort of walk through, like, what can you do to surround those volunteers to create a sense of team? Is there a team outing or a getting together or something where you could build in some connection, some fun? If you're the coordinator of the volunteers, you can be forthright and say, I want to do a better job of keeping in touch with you and making sure that you have access to me so that I'm supporting you. And then related to job connection, you could open it as a question. Is there anything about your role that I could clarify or make clearer? Or is there some other role in the organization? For example, I'm on this board for a private school, and they had me on a committee, and I was going to all the meetings, but like my strengths on this committee, and finally I just kind of tugged on the guy's sleeve. I was like, is there a committee where I could sort of advise and inform what kids are learning? Like, I know a lot about that. I don't know very much about finance, and so sometimes in a volunteer setting, you can really maybe mix and match the pieces on the chessboard. Does that help? What else?
How are we on time? We're about out of time. Okay. All right. Thank you all so much for your attention, and let's show our appreciation.
Yeah. Thank you all so much, and connect with me on LinkedIn. Search me up. I mean, I think I have contact. If I could ever be helpful to you, there's my email, or anyone in your organization, it would really be an honor. So have a great rest of the day, and thanks for giving me a little time.